All right, so we're just going to jump right into it.
All right, let's do it.
She's Sarah.
She's Harley, and we're gaveling in another session of Crime in Congress.
Marion Barry was born in 1936, the third child of parents Maddie Cummings and Marion Barry. I always think it's funny when parents wait to name a kid after themselves until it's like the second or third one, because it's like they're trying to find the best.
I know. I've seen that done before, too, and I'm like, it feels silly. It feels silly.
Like, if I'm a first child, and if my parents decided to name, like, one of my siblings after themselves, I would have been like, what are you doing?
I'm offended. Yeah.
Yeah. Anywho, his father, a sharecropper, would die when Marion was only 4 years old, forcing his family to uproot and move to Memphis, Tennessee. His mother would remarry, and the two would raise 8 children together. It's like a Brady Bunch situation.
Yeah, it's a lot.
Marion experienced racial prejudice from a very young age. For example, he was forced to walk to school while his white peers were provided school buses. Everything from schools to public bathrooms were segregated, and Marion knew early on that this was not right, fair, or just. His social activism would begin in his teen years, though he was somewhat forced into it by the prejudice he experienced as a paperboy. You see, Marion's paper was holding a contest where if you got 15 new people to sign up for the newspaper, you'd win a trip to New Orleans. Pretty good deal. Marion and some of his black friends hit that quota and were thrilled at the opportunity to see more of the country. But the newspaper decided they would only take white people on the trip because they apparently couldn't afford 2 buses, one for white people and one for black people.
Wow.
Yeah. To correct this injustice, Marion and his friends boycotted their paper routes, as they should.
Yeah, totally.
Until the paper agreed to send them to New Orleans. Eventually, they would settle on sending the boys to St. Louis, Missouri, because it was not a segregated city. And so I think that would mean that they wouldn't have to do the 2 buses. I'm not sure about that, though. And that satisfied the boys' protests. Personally, I would be upset if I was sent to St. Louis over New Orleans.
1,000%. Yeah.
But
no hate on St. Louis. No hate on St. Louis, but...
Yeah. But you know what? He's a teenager going up against a newspaper, so I see why he would take this as a win.
Yeah. Some concessions are concessions, right? I guess.
But you're seeing that even as a teen, Marion had an uncanny ability to rally people together to fight for a cause.
Yeah.
And this skill would end up shaping his career. Marion attended Lemoyne Owen College in Memphis, where he began his involvement in the school's chapter of the NAACP. This is where his leadership in the civil rights movement would really begin. A fun little tidbit about Marion is that his middle initial was S, but it didn't stand for anything. It was just S. When Marion became familiar with the work of, and I'm going to do my best here, Dmitry Shepilov, a Soviet politician, he decided he liked the name and adopted Shepilov as his middle name.
Okay, fun.
We should all do that, actually. Just give our kids a middle initial and then let them pick their middle name.
I like that. Build your own name.
Yeah. I love it. While getting his master's in organic chemistry, I could never.
Yeah, wow.
At Fisk University, Marion would help organize some of the first lunch counter sit-ins in Nashville, where he was arrested several times. Marion's star in the community was rising, and it culminated in him winning his first campaign in 1960, being elected as chairman of the Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee, which was very influential during the civil rights movement.
Yeah, absolutely.
After graduation, he tried a few doctoral programs, but they didn't work out for various reasons. Barry continued his work with the SNCC. In 1965, Marion moved to Washington, D.C. to open its local chapter of the SNCC. This is where he really proved that he was a force to be reckoned with. Marion organized the D.C. bus boycott, protesting bus fares being too high. Marion made sure that everyone involved in the boycott had a ride to work and successfully made his point by losing the bus line thousands of dollars.
That's kind of great, actually. That's a good boycott. Yeah, making sure everyone has a right to work is so important. It's well organized.
Right? And not easy either.
Yeah, absolutely.
He was also a founder of the Free DC movement and was active in helping black neighborhoods rebuild following the riots after MLK Jr.'s assassination. We need to cover that at some point because martial law was declared in DC.
Oh, we do need to, yeah.
I didn't even realize that martial law had ever been declared in the United States. That's just me being naive, I guess.
Yeah.
So it's definitely on the list.
Definitely.
He also lobbied for the creation of MLK Day, but President Nixon opposed that idea. Boo.
Yeah, boo President Nixon for a lot of different reasons, but that one for sure.
Yeah. In 1970, Marion won his first campaign for elected office, serving on a citizens board to smooth relations between police officers and black residents. In 1971, he ran for school board, where he was unanimously elected president and would serve until 1974, when he won a seat on the DC Council. If you know a little bit about DC history, then you likely know that 1974 was the year that DC won home rule, meaning it could establish its own government. And Marion was actually elected to the first ever DC Council.
And that's also when Mayor Washington, right, was elected? Okay, got it.
He would be reelected to a second term in 1976, meaning he was part of the ill-fated second DC Council when the Hanafi Muslims took over the building, killing one and wounding several others, including Councilman Marion Barry, who was shot near the heart.
And he was in the federal building, right?
Yes,
Okay.
the district building.
Oh, sorry, district building. Thank you.
If you want to hear more about this, make sure you go back and listen to parts 1 and 2. We go into a lot more detail. I think for a lot of people, being shot at work would be the final straw that would make you leave that job. Maybe even the profession entirely.
Yeah, I'm moving.
Yeah, but not Marion. Recovering rather quickly, he returned to work as a DC councilman, where his political career was about to take off. In 1978, he unseated incumbent Mayor Washington and was elected as only the second ever mayor to the District of Columbia. Before 1974, DC had a board of commissioners, so instead of a mayor, it had a commissioner.
Okay.
It's hard to imagine that the press coverage of Marion after the siege didn't contribute to his successful mayoral run. There's nothing that shows people how much you're willing to do to fight for them, like getting shot.
Absolutely.
The man would have several wives throughout his time. By the end of the 1970s, Barry would be married 3 times and divorced twice. At the time of the Hanafi siege, he was married to Mary Treadwell, who he divorced that same year to marry Effie Slaughter in 1978.
Not a hostage, notably.
No, not a hostage.
Listen to part 2 to get that joke.
Yeah. By the time Marion was done with DC politics, though, his love life would hardly register on the Richter scale for political scandal. He made sure of that. Let's rapid fire through the scandals that plagued his administration from 1978 to 1989.
All right.
Yes, he was reelected 3 times while all of this was going down.
Wow.
In 1987, when DC was hit with 20 inches of snow, enough to derail the entire city, we got like 6 inches a little while ago, and many people had no idea what to do with themselves.
Correct, yeah.
Yeah. The mayor was absent.
Oh, no.
That's because he decided to fly to sunny Pasadena for the Super Bowl.
Oh.
The Commanders weren't even playing in it. It was the Giants versus Broncos. We've just seen how politically damaging an ill-timed trip can be with the mayor of Los Angeles, who was in Ghana when her city went up in flames.
Yeah. I also think of Senator Cruz and, what was it, Cancun or something like that? Yeah.
Exactly. But this is perhaps worse than the mayor of Los Angeles, but similar to Cruz, because the snowstorm hit DC on January 22nd, and the Super Bowl was on January 25th.
Oh.
So he was already out there.
So I was interesting because I was about to ask, were like the radars just not as good and like he is like kind of like didn't know, but those dates don't really completely add up. Yeah.
No, he was already out there playing tennis and stayed for the Super Bowl.
Wow. Okay.
While his city was collapsing.
Not a great look. Nope.
No. Then, when he finally did return home, he opted to take a helicopter tour of the damage instead of seeing it from the ground because he said it would take too long.
Who's on the comms team? Who's on the comms team?
And who's paying for that helicopter?
Yeah, exactly. That's a taxpayer's paying for that helicopter.
Mm-hmm. He just wanted to have his, like, bachelor fantasy moment.
Totally,
date
yeah.
up in the helicopter, looking over at the snow.
Oh, no.
On top of all of this, he was also being accused of not setting up a proper response system to disasters like this. So not only was he handling it poorly in the moment, but he also didn't really do his job beforehand to make sure that the city had the resources it needed to be able to respond. Just a failure all around.
Not good, not good, not good.
This scandal alone would have been enough to tank most politicians, but not our man Marion. In fact, he was just getting started. In December 1988, he was seen going into the Ramada Inn hotel room of a known cocaine dealer named Charles Lewis. The hotel was located near a bar named This Is It, which is a great name for a bar.
Yeah, I like that.
Where many people reported seeing the mayor use drugs on multiple occasions.
Come on now.
Yeah. At least do it from the privacy of your own
Yeah, come
home.
on now, yeah.
Come on.
Go in a stall. Like, what are you doing?
In 1989, Lewis pled guilty to conspiring to buy at least $140 worth of crack for the mayor.
Crack?
Yes.
And now, I got a question.
Yes.
Crack is cheaper than cocaine, I would presume, right?
I actually don't know that.
I want to know. I do want to know how much $140 worth of crack actually is amount wise, and if that's high or low on like the scale of crack. You know, is that high end crack or is that low end crack?
So I actually do have some pricing later on, and that's a good amount.
Okay.
Like that's not a small amount of cocaine. He would also claim to have smoked crack with the mayor and passed a polygraph with that claim.
He's like, no, I definitely smoked crack with that guy.
Yeah. He also said that he sold the mayor cocaine on 3 different occasions.
Okay. I believe that. Yeah.
In response, Marion said, "I'm not worried about all this. He'll say anything in court to save his own hide."
Okay. I mean, maybe true, but also
People
seems
saw
like
you.
maybe smoke some crack with this guy.
Seems like maybe.
Yeah.
Like the simplest answer is probably the right one. Okay, but we're just getting started.
Okay.
1989 was a banger year for Barry's scandals. That year, it was reported that Barry did not file his taxes for several years in the early 1980s.
Come on.
I know. Like, if you're a public official, you gotta file your taxes. Like, everyone has to, but especially if you're in the public eye. Just go to H&R Block, file those taxes. Just do it.
I do TurboTax. Actually, sorry, my fiance does TurboTax for me.
I am a certified tax preparer, so if I were around in the 1980s, I would have done Barry's taxes for him.
Wow.
I actually have done taxes for a lot of strippers.
Oh, yeah. I remember you telling me about this. Yes.
So, fun fact. That's one of my favorite 2 truths and a lie.
Yeah, that's great. I mean, you have a lot of those.
I do. I have a lot of lore.
Yeah, you have a lot of things that could throw people off.
Yeah, I'm the lore friend. Like when I go out, I'll just like throw something crazy out.
You're like, come again?
Yeah, it's like, oh, you haven't dissected 60 human cadavers?
That's
what
weird.
Are you talking about?
In high school? That's weird.
Yeah, what? He was also fined $500 by city ethics for failing to report a real estate partnership. Not great.
Yeah.
During this time, he allegedly offered a hotel maid drugs in exchange for sex.
I like to think the hotel maid's like, I don't do drugs and I'm not gonna have sex with you? Question mark.
And also,
like,
are you the mayor?
Yeah.
I also feel like this is probably the Ramada Inn where he was getting cocaine from Charles Lewis.
Yeah, he was already there with Charles. Yeah.
Probably.
The hotel maid was like, I'm actually already tight with Charles, so I don't need drugs.
Like, I have my own hookup.
Yeah, and I'm not going to have sex with you.
And he's not charging me $140.
Yeah.
This was the least of his scandals, but I had to include it.
Mm-hmm.
He also had a boat called Love Story 3, which was a bit controversial because he was married to his third wife at the time, Effie Slaughter. So he literally named
That's kind of iconic.
He named his boat after his failed marriages.
I'm not mad at that one. I'm really not mad about that one, honestly.
It's like a weird mixture of self-awareness and having no shame whatsoever.
Yeah.
In response to all of this reporting about his misdeeds, Marion remained unfazed and unapologetic. He instead took a page out of today's political playbook and blamed the media. Quote, "We have a vicious press. I call them alligators, sharks, barracudas. They just want to eat you up. You make one mistake, one misstep. That's it."
One mistake, one misstep? That's what we're going with here?
Yeah, like, I could see the ethics fine as being a one misstep. Like, maybe you didn't realize you were supposed to disclose.
Yeah, $500 ethics violation. Whatever. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, not great, whatever. But everything else?
Bit shady. But the hits are going to keep coming. This is perhaps my favorite tale in this entire story.
Okay, fantastic.
In the 1980s, DC had a very active red light district on 14th Street.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Huh.
This was considered a blight on the city, and under Marion's watch, cops at the time wanted to crack down, pun intended, on
Oh, no.
on this kind of crime in their district. So that's when a couple of geniuses got together and came up with a fantastic idea. In July 1989, at 1:30 a.m., police raided 14th Street and rounded up all of the sex workers they could find. Sarah, can you guess what they did next?
I don't know, perhaps arrested them, did their Miranda rights, gave them due process?
You would think, but no. They decided to have a sex worker parade, having them walk in their heels across the bridge into Virginia.
Okay, jail. Jail for all of you. Jail for all of you. That's absurd.
Absurd. I guess the idea was that they would physically remove all of the sex workers from DC and dump them into Nova.
What?
With no food, water, transportation, clothing, housing, or literally anything but the money in their pockets and the clothes on their backs.
Like, oh great, I'll just walk right back across the river?
Pretty much.
Who came up with that idea? And how many people approved of it?
Right?
Is that even legal?
Probably not.
Yeah, that can't be legal, but also... Okay, yeah.
Someone was like, I know how to get rid of sex workers in DC. Let's just take them to Virginia.
These poor women.
These poor women.
Like, what?
Yeah. But the world was in agreement with us. Quoting from the Richmond Times-Dispatch, other than frightening or puzzling tourists who might have wandered out of luxurious watering holes...
I didn't even think about the tourists.
around Lower 14th Street, amusing night watchmen, stirring up Virginia lawmakers, and embarrassing city officials, and this is their words, not mine, hooker drive had little effect.
Yeah. It had, yeah. Awful.
In fact, most of the women just got back into cabs and went into the city and finished their shifts.
Yeah, they're like, I was literally in the middle of something, actually.
Yeah, I'm busy. Imagine how bad your feet would hurt, too.
Well, as someone who just waited outside for 2 hours in the cold, walking through the streets of DC to get into, like, one of these balls, I can't even imagine having to walk from 14th across the bridge.
Yeah. I barely want to take a car that far.
Yeah. What? Do we know? July. Okay, well, at least it wasn't, like, cold, but, like, still, that's awful.
Yeah.
Ugh.
So while this wasn't Barry's idea, he was the one who faced the political fallout. Barry and the city of Washington, D.C. became a national laughingstock. This was particularly bad for his political agenda as well, because he was trying to appear tough on crime, not as the clown who oversaw a sex worker parade.
Yeah.
But Sarah, the hits keep coming.
Oh, no.
Marion was seen in a velour tracksuit, iconic,
I mean, incredible.
and a hat that said mayor in big bold letters, entering the house of a local 23-year-old model during the day, aka while he was technically on the clock as a city employee and married. He would later defend his relationship with a local model. I think it's the same one whose house he went into, but I couldn't confirm that. But regardless, he was floating around circles with younger models.
Okay, yeah.
But his defense was that he just wanted to befriend her 5-year-old son.
Okay, well, that's creepy. That's actually worse. That's actually worse. Like, I would have like been like, oh, you're having an affair. Okay, like, I'm frowning upon you, shaking my head, but like,
it's not illegal.
That's not illegal. What?
You want to be friends with a 5-year-old?
That's way worse. Way worse.
Way worse. So much creepier.
That's bizarre.
Crazy.
Again, who's on the comms team, right?
He needs some help.
His
there.
comms team every single day is like, oh my god.
Yeah. And it's not even...
Why would he say that?
Like, you're trying to fight so many different fronts. It's like he's failing in his job as a mayor. His personal life is crazy. He's saying crazy things. And it's just like, oh my gosh, how do we spin all of this?
In the tracksuit, too. Oh, God.
And remember, he was reelected 3 times while all of this was going down. Insane.
No. No.
But I'm not done yet. He took 17 people, all friends who he'd hired, on a trip to the Virgin Islands, taxpayer funded, to apparently help overhaul their personnel system, which was a shock to residents because DC's personnel system was notoriously awful. So this was basically an all expenses paid vacation for 17 people.
This is really, I'm speechless. I'm really speechless at this point because I don't understand the thought process at all.
Yeah. And like,
is there any, like, I don't know, like,
we're feeling speechless. Imagine how, like, the people were feeling at this time. Like, they were just becoming numb to political scandal.
yeah. And I guess too, like, all these, like, because I'm thinking a lot of these trips, right, it has to have, you have to have some agreeance there. You have to, you know, everyone say this is a good idea. But I guess if he is like hiring his own friends, or like, yeah, Virgin Islands, here we come. Like,
exactly. But don't worry, it keeps going. Barry and his third wife, Effie, were given a shockingly low mortgage rate for their home at a time when rates were spiking nationwide. Sus. Effie was also given very expensive gifts from a lawyer engaged in city business. Huge ethics violation.
Yeah.
I don't know what the DC rules are, but the federal government like doesn't allow you to accept anything above $20. So,
in what year? I mean, when was this?
this was in around the 1980s, but I didn't get an exact year.
I mean, that's before.
Yeah.
That's before a lot of things were pretty loosey goosey back
That's
then.
true.
But yeah, it's still not great for sure. That's why we have the rules we have today.
Yeah, fair enough. But the worst for Marion by far was still to come. In his second term, crazy that he was even reelected once, 10 top district officials were convicted of crimes, including one woman who was convicted of selling cocaine.
Dang.
His trusted advisor and deputy mayor, Ivanhoe Donaldson. And naming your kid Ivanhoe is just so mean.
We, Carrie and I watched Meet the Parents last night, and, you know, there's a running joke that, like, his last name's Fokker, and then it comes out at the end that his name is Gaylord Fokker. And then the two parents are, like, talking, and the dad goes, oh my gosh, I just realized something terrible. And she's like, mom's like, what? He's like, her middle name, and it's Martha Fokker. Anyways,
like,
good
you
movie.
gotta think about all the ways your kid could be bullied for their name
Exactly.
before you name them.
Yeah, precisely. That's good parenting.
Sorry, I'm just gonna call you Ivan. Sorry, Ivan. But he was convicted of stealing $200K in city funds, which today would be over $500,000. Maybe if he had been given a better name, he would have made better decisions.
That's true. Maybe.
This is also the second time that someone close to Barry was arrested for a cocaine-related charge.
I mean, I think it's very clear that everyone's doing cocaine this entire time because how else would you come up with this idea to go to the Virgin Islands to overhaul the personnel system? That is a cocaine idea.
Yeah. Sex worker parade, cocaine
That's
idea.
a cocaine idea. Like, I am convinced everyone was doing cocaine at this time.
Everyone.
It's also the 80s. Like,
Exactly. And so because of all of these cocaine ideas, there were rumors just swirling that the mayor himself was involved in drug use. In fact, on several occasions, he was hospitalized and would write it off as something like innocuous, like exhaustion. But people close to him would say that he actually overdosed multiple times.
Ooh.
Yeah. The fact that the mayor was embroiled in cocaine rumors was a big deal, not just because of the illicit activity, but because DC was fighting a crack cocaine epidemic.
I'm telling you, God, this is the 80s. Crack cocaine is everywhere.
Everywhere. Crack cocaine first appeared on the streets of DC in 1986, and by 1987, it was a full-blown crisis, with the capital city at the epicenter. Quoting from WAMU radio, the cars would line up, sometimes backing up traffic on nearby North Capitol Street, with drug buyers honking, like commuters stuck in rush hour traffic.
That's
insane.
That's something. Wow.
In just 2 years, cocaine-related emergency room visits doubled, and arrests increased tenfold. But cocaine was still seen as an elite drug, favored by yuppies. The smallest half-gram bag costs about $50.
Okay.
So the mayor was getting about like a gram and a half for 140 bucks.
However, this is cocaine and not crack cocaine. Or is
No,
this,
all, I'm using them interchangeably, but this is all crack cocaine.
Okay.
Yeah. I just don't want to say crack cocaine every time.
Crack.
Yes. It got so bad that police actually occupied Hanover Place for over a year and boarded up 47 vacant buildings in the area just to address the drug and crime crisis that had a stranglehold on the city and primarily impacted Black communities, the same constituency that overwhelmingly elected Barry as mayor.
Things are obviously not as bad as they were. However, I would like to use this opportunity to say that one time I was getting on the metro and right outside the metro entrance, and there was a man there smoking crack cocaine from like a crack.
Wow. I don't think I've ever actually seen that.
That's big city living for you.
That's DC, baby.
Yeah. Let me check that one off my bingo card.
Because Marion was in office right as this epidemic was taking off, residents rightfully expected him to do something about it. And to his credit, he launched the DC Drug Summit in October 1986, aimed at addressing the crisis. But now it was rumored that he was part of the problem, embodying the very traits that he was elected to eliminate from the district. But the rumors were just that, rumors. Until one day, they weren't. The afternoon of Thursday, January 18th, 1990, Marion Barry spoke to a group of McKinley High School students about the dangers of drugs, warning them to just say no. This was a well-timed stop for him, since he was planning to announce his re-election on Saturday. After his afternoon of campaigning, because let's be real, every public engagement a politician does is campaigning, Marion Barry met up with his ex-girlfriend Rashida Moore. She had just secured some crack cocaine from a friend and offered some to Marion. He agreed and went up to the 7th floor of the Vista Hotel, which is really close to the Ramada where he allegedly used cocaine with Lewis. What happened next is actually recorded, and I'm going to roll the tape. Sarah, I'm going to have you describe for listeners what you're seeing. And so can you kind of set the scene for us?
All right. So what I am seeing here is it's black and white footage. It's 1990, so it's not, pristine, but kind of gives like a CTV footage, but definitely a little bit better. We are in a hotel room, and a lamp is on, and there are two people, it looks like, maybe in the room, and one of them looks like Marion Barry, and perhaps Marion Barry is about to do some crack cocaine.
All right, let's roll the tape and see.
All right.
What are you doing that to?
Lately, when I do this stuff, I get hyper. Heck.
I mean, just too nervous, too hype. I've been looking at the porn. I always did that. Just kidding. Always kidding. I've been tuning a lot, and I've been doing that too, man.
Oh yeah. All right. So what I just saw happen was it looked like it was Marion Barry and then Rashida. Was she was out there talking, but Marion Barry is smoking some crack cocaine. It looks like.
Yeah. And they're like talking about the effects that the crack has on them.
Yeah, kind of like tweaking almost is kind of like what they're kind of saying. Yeah.
But you see him pretty clear as day smoking cocaine.
Yeah. I mean, yeah. He's definitely smoking something. For sure. Yeah. And I'm sure they're about to bust in there and and find some crack cocaine. Yeah.
All right, so hit play again.
Okay.
I should have come up here. Mr. Mayor, I'm going to ask you if you want to waive your rights and sign the form that you understood your rights.
I'm going to call my lawyer right now. I mean, goddamn, I got up here with this goddamn bitch setting me up like this. Set me up, ain't that a bitch? Calm down. Goddamn, I shouldn't have come up here.
You have to sit still for it.
I am under that, but that pisses me off.
We're just going to make sure.
That bitch did that to me.
We're just going to make sure that you're physically sound and you're not suffering any kind of health problems. That's all.
So they bust in, they've apprehended him, and they asked if he wants to waive his rights, and Marion Barry goes, I'd like to talk to my lawyer. And then the rest of the video, he's just saying, that goddamn bitch set me up.
Yep. And that becomes like the iconic quote that comes out of this scandal.
Oh my gosh.
Which to me, that kind of sounds like a bit of an admission of guilt. Saying
Yeah,
you were set up.
That's true. That's true.
I don't know. And if you'll notice, these were not the DC police. This was the FBI that came in.
Yes.
So yeah, turns out the person who gave Rashida Moore the crack cocaine was an undercover cop working with the FBI. And they had just walked into a sting operation. After which, Marion was promptly arrested.
Wow, so Rashida didn't know that she was part of it?
No, she was part of it.
Oh, she was. Okay,
Yeah.
got it.
That's why you hear him repeating the phrase, bitch set me up, bitch set me up. The FBI would report that this was part of, quote, an ongoing public corruption probe, which there was some public corruption to probe.
Yeah, it seems like it.
But Marion had a different explanation. The FBI was out to get him, and they actually planned to kill him with the cocaine instead of arrest him. They just were unsuccessful, so they arrested him. So he's admitting that there was cocaine and that he used it and they wanted to kill him.
I see. Okay, I see.
Basically.
Sure. Yeah.
He was arraigned the following morning and was released on his own recognizance, which I guess makes sense if you're the mayor.
Yeah.
This meant that DC's, quote, mayor for life, as he was often called, was facing 10 charges, some of them felonies, including 3 counts of perjury, 10 counts of drug possession, and 1 count of conspiracy to possess cocaine. All of the drug charges were misdemeanors, but the perjury charges were felonies.
That's tough. So when does he resign?
Ooh, that's the $1 million question. This is not where he resigns. In fact, this is where he announces his intentions to run for re-election.
I love it. This is like a Jim Trafficant situation. Yeah.
Full steam ahead. Marion was insistent that he did nothing wrong, and a lot of his colleagues were so disenchanted by his frequent run-ins with the law and controversy that they didn't even bother to call for his resignation, at least not right away. In fact, Marion would remain mayor all the way through his trial, which ended in August 1991 in a way no one, not even the lawyers, expected.
Oh.
After maintaining his innocence for months, Marion's fate laid with the jurors, which was comprised of 9 women, all black, and 3 men, 1 black and 2 white. And they saw the same video that we just watched, which you said made it look pretty clearly like he was using cocaine. Like, it's on video.
Yeah.
After 8 days of jury deliberations, which is a long time.
Definitely.
The jury returned with a verdict. of sorts. Marion Barry was found guilty of conspiracy to possess cocaine, and only conspiracy to possess cocaine. On the remaining charges, the jury was deadlocked and a mistrial would be declared.
Wow, deadlocked. Interesting. Wild.
Yeah, so basically, the short explanation is that he was able to curry sympathy from the jury and cast just enough reasonable doubt. For instance, some members of the jury thought that the rocks didn't look like cocaine.
Wait, I kind of love that. You're like, actually, as someone who's an expert.
Yeah. As someone who has it in my pocket right now.
As someone who has them this morning, let me say.
And a lot of them bought the defense's argument that this was a setup and entrapment.
So he was able to convince the people that the FBI was after him?
Pretty much,
Wow.
yeah. Oh, and it's important to note that the one misdemeanor charge he was found guilty of wasn't even from this sting. It was from a prior year and just got lumped in.
Oh, interesting.
Which means there were actually no charges related to this January 18th video that he was found guilty of.
Those only look like crack rocks to me.
In September 1991, Marion Barry was sentenced to 6 months incarceration, which he served in Petersburg, Virginia. I was actually surprised that he saw jail time.
Yeah, I am too, actually.
2 months later, he lost his first ever election, but still received a whopping 20% of the vote in his bid for mayor.
That's impressive.
Yeah.
20%. Wow.
Really impressive.
Either those people are just like completely not plugged into politics, or they're like, they're doing the crack cocaine themselves.
Yeah. They're like, oh, he's one of us.
Yeah,
one of us.
Yeah.
While Barry was in jail, he would continue to court controversy. It was alleged that he allowed a woman to perform oral sex on him while he was in a prison waiting room. So romantic. And he's married.
Yeah, he's still married.
Remind
Yeah.
you. After serving out his sentence, Marion immediately began to plan his political comeback. Just a few months after his release, he announced his intentions to run for city council.
Listen, this man is never discouraged. Let me tell you that. So how did he pitch himself?
It was actually really good. He ran on the slogan, "He may not be perfect, but he's perfect for DC."
That's good. That's good. I can't.
Yeah.
I love that. Actually, I love that.
Yeah. I don't hate it. It's honest. It's real.
And voters want honesty.
Yeah. He also told voters who disapproved of him to, quote, get over it.
He's like, I served my time.
Yeah.
Anyways, next.
And Sarah, he won.
Of course he did. Of course he did.
He won the race to represent Ward 8 with a whopping 70% of the vote.
That's a heck of a majority.
70%.
Astounding. That's amazing. Wow.
Marion wasn't done either. In 1994, he ran for mayor again and won with 53% of the vote, which was actually pretty low for a Democrat in Washington.
Okay.
No other Democrat candidate has dipped below 60% until Muriel Bowser, who Marion actually would go on to endorse.
Interesting. Funny.
But now it's 1994, and Mayor Barry is at it again. This shocked the nation and was considered one of the biggest political comebacks ever.
For real?
Unsurprisingly, though, Congress reacted negatively to this re-election.
Shocking.
And decided to punish DC for it.
Mm.
In 1997, Congress voted to roll back some of DC's home rule by stripping Barry of a lot of his powers, in a clear message that they did not have faith in DC's constituency to choose capable leaders. Tough.
Yeah.
Because of this, in hopes that it would help reestablish some of DC's home rule rights, and this is where we see that Barry really does care about DC. That term would be Barry's last. He was like, all right, DC needs home rule. I'm not going to run for re-election as mayor.
It's actually kind of sweet.
Yeah. Didn't work, though. After working in finance for a few years, in March 2002, Barry announced that he was running for council again.
Wow.
But would withdraw from the race a few months later when police found trace amounts of marijuana and cocaine in his car. Yeah. This caused him to sit it out for a term. But in 2004, he once again launched a bid for city council and once again won a seat representing Ward 8. If there's one thing about Marion, he's going to survive a scandal.
Wow. That's incredible.
And if you thought jail taught him anything, think again. In October 2005, Marion would plead guilty to misdemeanor tax-related charges. After failing a drug test, he was sentenced to 3 years probation as a city councilman. He failed to file taxes in both 2005 and 2007. Like I said, this man really needs to get himself to an H&R Block.
I know. This is nuts.
In 2009 would also be a rough year for Marion. On July 4th, he was arrested for stalking an ex-girlfriend, although the charges would be dropped 4 days later.
Uh-huh.
That arrest, though, would cause an investigative reporter to do some more digging into Marion, and he would find that as mayor, Marion personally benefited from the contracts he made with city dollars. He'd basically get kickbacks. And when he wasn't pocketing taxpayers' money, he was giving it to organizations ripe with waste, fraud, and abuse.
Yeah, I mean, that's the definition of corruption.
Yep.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Wow.
Then, in 2011, a federal lien was taken against Barry for $3,200 in unpaid taxes. Finally, the last scandal I have to report is that in 2012, while celebrating his re-election as Ward 8 City Councilman, Barry made racist remarks against Asian Americans. In his apology, he ended up using a derogatory slur for Polish people. And then around the same time, he also caused a bit of a diplomacy issue when he insulted a delegation from the Philippines with a racist comment.
This guy's unbelievable. This guy is unbelievable.
Yeah.
So how does he keep getting the votes though? I know DC has a lot of tolerance for people. You know, I mean, you can look at our latest councilman drama. The councilman representing Ward 8 last year was arrested on bribery. So
Cool.
yeah.
Yeah.
But I'm still shocked though that okay, let's dissect this a little bit.
Okay, so here are some things you need to know about Marion. He was a flamboyant charmer and a skilled politician. But to his credit, he did some good things for his community. For example, he's credited with bringing opportunity to Black communities and attention, albeit not always good, to the city. He gave a lot of people their first jobs, having started a summer jobs program for youth and hiring Black people for good-paying government jobs that were typically reserved for white people. Marion strengthened minority-owned businesses with citywide initiatives and started a home buying assistance program. And remember, he built his political star as a neighborhood organizer, civil rights activist, freedom rider, and early member of the DC Home Rule movement.
Right.
In many ways, Marion Barry was the District of Columbia. And the people had compassion for him even in his flaws because he was a very real person who battled the same demons that were plaguing the community he served.
And he was always very honest, I think.
Yes.
Yeah.
He never pretended to be something that he wasn't.
Yeah. That's true.
That's why some people remember Marion Barry, who passed in 2014 from heart disease, as a corrupt drug user who embarrassed DC and oversaw a period of high crime, infant mortality, and murder rates. Others remember Marion as the guy I just described, an imperfect civil rights leader who dedicated his life to uplifting the little guy. And actually, I posted on TikTok at Crime in Congress about this case as like a little bit of a teaser.
Yeah.
And we only got like 4 comments, but one of the comments was like, I'm paraphrasing here, but like, as a Black man in DC, Marion Barry did a lot for us growing up. And so there's still to this day a lot of love for Marion in the city. So this dichotomy between the scandal-prone Marion and the civil rights leader Marion is exactly what got the restaurant chain and pizza into trouble. Sarah, I'm going to show you an ad, and you tell listeners what you see.
So this is a marketing poster from And Pizza. The picture is an image of garlic knots with, it looks like kind of like white powder on it. I'm not sure if it's like Parmesan or if it's like powdered sugar, but essentially it has white powder on it. and they're called according to the poster, the Marion Barry knots. And then the description under it is, these knots will blow you away.
And there's like a pile of powdered sugar.
Yes, there is. Yeah.
That's like arranged as if it's cocaine. And the subheading is Marion Barry filled knots topped with icing, powdered sugar, and then even more powdered sugar. Enough powder for you and a few friends.
So clearly a callback to his cocaine usage or conspiracy to have in possession or whatever all of it was.
Which is really just misreading the room. Because I think the people at And Pizza assumed that everyone was cool with him, like, with like, poking fun at Marion Barry. But they did not realize just how much love there still is for him in the district.
Yeah.
And people were calling this ad racist because it was mocking a civil rights leader. Not great. I don't think And Pizza just thought this through enough.
Yeah.
I think that's really the crux of the issue.
I think they probably didn't have a black person from DC in the room, right? You know what I mean? Like I think that's clearly what was lacking in the marketing room today. It was people who looked like you and I, and just or like he literally got in legal trouble for cocaine. That's funny. Yeah. And didn't account for all the love, and definitely didn't consult anyone who knew about it. Yeah, exactly. And felt that way.
And so this is like, we even have these conversations with Crime in Congress about trying to be respectful of these people who do bad things, but that are parts of communities that we aren't part of and that we can't ever fully understand.
Totally.
And so whenever we do fall short, we want people to tell us. But we try to be as un-and pizza as possible about these crimes. So, And Pizza ended up issuing 2 apologies. With the second reading in part, we take full accountability for our misstep and wholeheartedly apologize to Miss Cora Masters Barry, who was his wife at the time of his death.
Is that wife number 4?
4 or 5.
Okay, yeah. 4 or 5, got it.
And to those we let down. Which, good apology, I think.
Yeah.
Not my decision to make, but from a comms perspective, I think that it's a good apology.
Yeah.
And
I guess the other angle too is that he's clearly, if he's doing so, he's gotten in so much trouble for drugs over the years. I think that, right, like, he's obviously an addict. He obviously has addiction issues, right? And so I think that could also, just be poking fun at someone who really did do a lot of good for the community overall, but, perhaps struggled with addiction issues. I can see that perspective as well. That's interesting.
And he was a victim of DC's crack cocaine epidemic. And so it's kind of like poking fun at something that stole a lot of lives from the district. And that, like, a lot of people were victimized by. Yeah.
Not to make light of the crimes he did commit or the taxpayer dollars that he did waste and steal. Yeah. Those are crimes. Those are crimes.
I think Marion Barry is proof that you can have good beliefs for bad reasons.
Certainly helps the cause if you're not corrupt. Yeah. Don't be corrupt. Yeah.
Don't be corrupt. That's the moral of the story. Don't be corrupt. And yeah, that concludes the story of the Hanafi siege, Marion Barry, and one of the worst received ad campaigns in DC history. What a ride it was.
What a ride it was.
Sarah, can you gavel us out?
Absolutely.